Welcome to Mahs Garage. I'm Smokey.
Rick?
I'm Kev. We're going to talk to you about magic.
And I am so ready. I've been looking forward to this all day. I got my magic cards and we're going to get this going.
I totally came prepared.
It's right 1 week, you guys. Really? All three of us on the same page?
What do you got? Wait, what are you talking about?
Did you not build your deck?
No, I didn't. I built my list of wonders and mysteries of the world.
Wonders and mysteries?
Yes. The fantastical beasts, the wonderful wizarding world.
Yeah.
All the magic
beast. I got one of those.
Oh. So you're talking about like magic, like using magic.
Yes, the thing that people were hung for back in the day that probably knew how to do some pretty cool stuff.
Ah, I see what you're talking about.
So what do you want to know about magic?
Well, I guess I'm just curious to know how much we used to know and has been lost to time.
Interesting. And I kind of want to know more about like how strong of a presence that magic has in our society today.
I think I'd probably wonder, what do we even consider as magical nowadays in society? Let's find these out. Come grab a log and join us by the fire. Start off easy. If you could have just one magical power, what would that be? Just one. That.
Probably that. Electricity, the power to go fast and stuff. I don't know why I've always been the lightning guy. As a kid, you play the Who's the Elements game because you watch Captain Planet and you gotta go on the next level where you're Mortal Kombat Captain Planet. I was like the electricity guy.
You could do a lot with that electricity too, because you could just charge your cell phone. You could jump your battery if it goes dead. Do a lot of different things. Like everyday use, that'd be pretty beneficial.
Should write a comic book about it. What about you, Smokey? What do you got?
I feel like my answer is changing every single time I answer this question, but I feel like being able to teleport, being able to go wherever you want at whatever time, like almost kind of similar to that to like that movie, but like just being able to just 1 second and then like wherever you're going, but at the same time like you also have to think about like in terms of teleporting, like wherever you're teleporting to, like how do you know what's at that point that you're teleporting to, and how, like God forbid you teleport in the middle of like a highway and kill yourself, like because you teleported into the middle of a
how does it work? Can you visibly see it before you actually enter it?
Yeah. I guess
what do you do if you're having like a nightmare?
I guess I'd have to go with flight. I want to be able to fly.
And I think it's pretty similar to teleportation. I mean, those kind of go like pretty close. One's more instantaneous.
That's what I'd have to go with, because at least with flight, it gives me a mode of transportation, as well as gives me something that I can assist others in terms of like if someone's injured and I need to fly them to safety per se, something along those lines.
I totally feel that.
Right.
Flying would be awesome. Flying's one of my it's in my top 3. It's probably second place, to be honest.
It was going to be my number 1 until I went with that in teleportation.
I know, man. The choices are out there.
Right.
I mean, basically, as long as you don't say invisibility, then because everyone wants to be invisible too, but like
it's true.
Which I feel like that get old pretty quick
with that. Like,
and it's kind of a sketchy power at the same time. But
I mean, just to be able to be invisible, to be able to sneak into like Area 51, to be able to sneak into the Pentagon, to be able to sneak into all these different things. Yeah, just be a fly on a wall wherever you want to that you can get access to.
No cloak needed.
But then,
so it means sketchy. You just want to be sketchy.
What if you try and make it sound okay? What if you were to get into a place like say for example, you like follow behind like a scientist and get into like a confidential lab, but then you can't get out.
Now it's your prison, right? Yeah.
Exactly.
You just gotta wait and hide until someone leaves.
And then through the means that someone's leaving, someone else is coming in, and makes it like difficult for you to get out.
Yeah.
There could be factors.
Mine, I think I'd have to do would be transmutation, like the ability to like transform myself and other objects into different things. Because then it's like, if I
You'd
need
want
to
to be
get
the singular Wonder Twins.
right, exactly.
Yeah,
But if I need to go fast, I'm a cheetah. If I need
transmutation.
to fly, I'm an eagle. If I need to, you know what I mean? And like, I can do that with objects too. Boom, I need a car. This cheeseburger is now a car. You know what I mean?
Oh,
And
you
it's
can
like,
change other things too. That's awesome.
Yeah, he's just
within my mind,
he's
yeah.
saying in general. He's saying like he's basically talking about like alchemy minus the alchemy.
I feel like you just made that superpower up, but it sounds badass.
It's magic.
Oh no,
Cheat
it's
code.
it's a legitimate thing, and especially since like it's been talked about in like comic. Well, I don't know about like comics per se. Well, no, yeah, definitely, because you have like Sandman and you have like other people that could like transmute these elements.
I went to
Things around them, yeah.
Sword in the Stone, where they had that little battle between like the dragon and like they keep turning into different animals. Then he turns into like a bacteria to kill the giant dragon.
Yeah,
That's kind of where my mind went with it, with Merlin. Speaking of magic,
and I mean I've seen some incredible anime that they've done stuff to that degree where they're just like 1 minute they're these, 1 minute they're that, like No Game No Life, where they had like that, where they had that one point where they were literally just like this rule, now this rule, now this rule, now this rule, now this rule, and then it was just changing constantly.
Bam, 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 bam.
dude, Animorphs. Anything you touched, you could turn
Oh.
into.
Dude, Animorphs
right.
was amazing back in the day.
And, like, oh, it's like that'd be another nice one, like Beast Boy. But I guess I could do that with transmutation, where you could just
With
like
transmutation, you could
switch on and go fly up and turn into a bird.
in terms of
and turn into a gorilla and
transmutation,
come
you're
down and
talking
just-
about like being able to change yourself as well as being able to manifest, I feel.
right. You can pretty much rebuild the matter around you. You can take it into its building blocks and reform it.
Okay.
Like, yeah.
God.
So
Is
maybe you would
there-
have to. You'd be limited to matter, so you could only like change something to the same amount of matter
My gosh.
that it
It sounded.
has. If you made it
it's-
scientific,
Is there
You'd have to be good at chemistry or something. That's awesome.
you'd have
is
to know
there
how
a
much does that weigh, how much mass is there.
transmute fruit in One Piece yet?
Ooh, that's a good question.
No,
I haven't
right?
gotten to you guys, but
I feel like they've
Transmute fruit. Boom,
gone
names right there.
all of the elements and all of the options.
Yeah, transmute fruit.
Transmute. I can literally transmute myself into anything, and I can manifest anything.
You could
That's
hide
what
into labs like
That's
that.
what Gold
Boom.
Rogers' ability was.
I'm that scientist's phone. Now
You
he
turn this
carries me
treasure
into
into
that
devil
lab,
fruits.
and I can still get into those secret places. You know what I mean? And then you could just transform. So you could use it for the same powers as the invisibility.
Yeah,
If you wanted to.
jeez. No kidding. That was a good power. Good power. I did not like
We made him think because we took the
was
best.
not thinking in that realm.
I was thinking flying originally. Originally, that's where I was going. And then you said teleportation. So I was like, I'll change it up a little bit more. And then you strictly went flying. I was like, okay.
Man.
Made me think. What
Yeah,
I
good
mean,
one.
put all three of those together, though, if you could transmute, fly, and then shoot lightning. Like,
Well, I mean, basically, like transmuting, you can transmute lightning, and then
you'd have to have the matter. Like with that'd be the difference, because the electric person could just generate electricity,
that's true.
whereas the transmuter has to turn other matter into said
That
electricity.
is
In the rules that I'm creating for it here as we speak.
that is true, man.
Just talk about
Good
magic has
question.
turned into talk about our next manga.
Yeah, right.
That's right. Right.
Gosh.
I wonder if that's where superheroes come from. It's just like that's this next generation's version of magic, because you don't have as much like back in the day in medieval times. It was wizards and warlocks and witches, and we don't see as much of that in prevalence. Also, Harry Potter, I guess, and you do have Lord of the Rings and stuff. But
And maybe that was just olden day comics.
yeah,
Maybe that's some of
exactly.
the books we're finding. They're just olden
Fairy
day
tales and
stories.
stuff.
I mean, what
You know how
more
much
more
different.
is a comic than just a picture book with
Exactly.
words?
Right.
Exactly.
So it was just a medium of communication. And
Like-
back in the day when they didn't they had like ye old times, like they had like whatever newspaper or whatever, they didn't have like comics per se, but like I feel like they just thought of like what was otherworldly as like something magic,
Based off of stuff that they saw around them, right?
That they didn't
based off of
understand.
what they saw. Yeah.
If you can't understand it, it's magic. You know what I mean? If you do
And that's
something that someone can't grasp, like that's where illusionary magic, like tricks, it's magic to you because you don't know that they just slipped it over here or did this or did that. To
Mhm.
you, that's
Yeah.
magic because you don't get the concept of how it was conceived.
Yes.
and you hear
Because
that
your mind
all
didn't catch it.
you hear that all the time. And I've been thinking about that, especially like knowing we're going to do this episode on this topic, like just thinking about like different things of magic, like thinking about like different conversations that like you describe something and they're just like, oh, so you're performing magic. Like just something that's beyond their comprehension that
Right.
they're just like, it's just,
No, I
they
just
just
explained it to you.
immediately side, they just immediately slide it to magic.
Well, and you have movie magic too, where it's just the whole editing and the distraction, and you can shoot it in real life, but make it seem like extraordinary just by editing stuff out and splicing stuff together.
And that,
like,
or even
that's
camera
a lot of
angles
power.
in general,
Yeah.
right?
Right, sizing and everything. You can make someone look tiny, make someone look huge just by the angle you shoot. That's magic. That's you're making people perceive something different than that's actually there. Like you're creating illusions.
Yes. It's great. How many people do you think were killed back in the day for accidentally zapping somebody from static electricity?
Which
Oh my
Creating magic,
gosh.
yeah.
well, nature can even like speaking of illusions, like I remember one time we were at the store and on like break from our job, and we look on the hill and there's this horse, and this thing looks massive, just 4 times the size of a normal horse. And I just like told my coworker, I was like, Joe, do you see the size of that horse? And he's like, yeah. And like what we did is we drove up to it, and what happened is like there was a hill in front of it and that it was standing on, but it blended in with a hill further behind it, so the horse was a lot closer than he looked. He looked like he was super far, and he looked ginormous. But I was looking at real life, you know what I mean? I wasn't looking at no screen, no manipulation. It was real life tricked my eyes so much. I'm like, that's a big horse.
Yes.
And it's
Yes.
just it's because of how your eyes perceived like what was in his peripherals, and seeing like the different dimensions of like the hill in front, the hill in the back, and where the horse was positioned. Like that's
my mind did a
that's
map
why
that's far
they
away.
say that our human retinas are only capable of like 2000 if like pixels at a time. And that's why they even say like going to like 4K, 8K, whatever it's going to be
It
next.
doesn't even matter.
That it doesn't even matter, because anything past 1080p, like your eyes won't be able to legitimately see that much of that difference.
But we
losing the
adapt
illusion.
and we evolve, though.
True. But you lose some of that illusion. Have you watched some shows with that 4K and you're like,
Oh yes, I have.
this
It almost looks like you're
terrible.
watching them like filming it.
Right, like you have like a microscope looking at their pores, and you're like,
Yes.
this is too close, like too
Like
Yeah.
close.
it's like you're right behind you're right in
I
front of the camera guy.
I
Yeah.
really like 4K and like HDR for like nature,
Yes. Oh, 4K.
because
freaking,
holy cow, like
it don't look real. It
our
don't look
planet
real.
in
Oh.
4K on my 4K TV is
Dude.
just, you can literally just sit there and watch it for the entire time that it like I have done that, where I've literally
Magics
watched
of
our
technology.
planet like 3-4 episodes in a row, which is like 3-4 hours.
You
So-
showed me that show, and like there was a part where there's like they do a part on whales.
Mhm.
My mind couldn't grasp the visuals. That's the point where I knew 4K was beyond, because it looked beyond reality. Like, because my mind wasn't supposed to see such a grand creature, and like with all the water and like it was just so much information that my eyes were taking, and I was just like, this doesn't look real. It doesn't look fake, but it doesn't look real. It looks too real. Looks too real.
It almost looks animated.
Yeah, exactly.
But
It looks like CGI.
they were legitimately filming this animal.
All right.
That's how I felt when I saw mountains for my first time. Like
Yeah.
it looked like a
rendered.
canvas in the distance.
Yeah,
It was like a
literally.
canvas in the distance. You can see the brush strokes and stuff. I
So-
watched Bob Ross the week before, but
Well, they look like that to you, and the only thing that like breaks that is the more seasons that you see them grow through, where you can see snow caps on the back, and you can
Mhm.
you begin to like, it takes you don't get their depth from looking at them for a couple hours. It's literally over time as you see actually the different changes, that these mountains look like they're right next to each other, but this one's covered in snow and this one's dry. And it's like, because they're miles away, but they're right next to each other. And it's just like,
it's mind blowing.
Yeah,
it really is. It's kind of humbling.
Dude, just peripherals in general are mind blowing. And that's why, like, kind of like what Crick was talking about, like, just like a magician, like utilizing illusions and just like tricking the human mind. Because at the end of the day, if I can get someone to witness something that is beyond their mind's comprehension, I have succeeded
as a magician. Yes.
Right. Well, yeah, because the other people use that same technique, but for more mischievous reasons, like marketing, like where you're like, you can use like subconscious tones and they can say different things, or they can use like different patterns or colors, and just to manipulate your mind, you know what I mean? Because they know how the mind works. And the same thing as magicians. It's the same thing with a hypnotist, where they can hypnotize you, because they know how to connect to those parts of your mind and overwrite it. And it's like people like hypnotize people like are usually more intelligent people too. It's not the more subjective. It's usually people who are more intellectual that are more prone to being hypnotized,
because they're the ones who are more intrigued by it.
Yeah, it could be too. But I've met skeptics, people who think it's just so fake and so just like ludicrous. But like what they were saying is like there was one where they had them like hold their hands together like this, and then they did this whole little thing, and they told them, now ungrasp your hands. And my friend, who was like a skeptic, tried to ungrasp his hands and couldn't do it. And they're like, if you couldn't ungrasp your hands, come up to the front. That means you're more susceptible to their hypnotism. And that's how they pick their people that they're going to mess with. But he was just smart. Like super skeptical. And
he hypnotized the entire audience.
Yes. Yeah. Because you can find who in the audience is more receptive. And then
that's pretty incredible. I didn't think people could actually do like that.
Interesting.
Dude,
that's like super villain level stuff.
Hypnotizing blows my mind. And that's where it's like, I've never been hypnotized, but talking to someone who firsthand experienced, who's also very skeptical of it, kind of locked it in for me. And it's something I want to go experience. But at the same time, they say it's scary. Someone had that kind of control of your brain through
like you'd have to go with a friend somehow. A friend who has earplugs in.
They're only saying stuff to you. They're only talking to you and looking at you. You know what I mean? They're not getting inside your brain else in any other way.
I just mean to make sure it's not a con artist.
Right.
Wake up and all of a sudden
you're naked and your butt hurts.
You got stitches down your ribs.
This was a weird hypnotist show.
Right. I'm gonna have to check this out next week. See if it's the same show.
Ha ha ha! Where's the punchline? Oh god, that hurts so bad. But no, for real, dude, magic. It's cool how it can be found in nature still too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like
it's good that humans can still appreciate it, and especially with like different organizations that try to like bring out the magic and bring out the spiritualism in nature, like organizations in California or over in Oregon and Washington. There's a lot of organizations over on the West Coast, I guess, but I think there's other organizations in like Tennessee as well as like Nebraska and some other places as well.
For what do they do?
Like actually like talking about like the spiritualism of nature, having like nature retreats. Yes, it's huge, man. Mm-hmm.
I'm enjoying the spirit, and there is something magical about just getting out and being in the woods, breathing in the fresh air, listening to the trees.
It's because it's such a natural occurrence that just happens. You know what I mean? It happens all the time. It's like we don't understand it, so it's magical. You know,
and we take it for granted too.
It's more primitive. It's more primitive. And it kind of like gives us that like almost that nostalgia feeling, but not necessarily nostalgia. It's just more of like, I'm outside, I'm breathing fresh air. I'm not in a bustling city. There's not cars anywhere around me. It's all, I hear the birds. I hear the bugs. I hear the deer. I hear the rat, like other, like the squirrels. Like you feel more in tune, like when you're in that setting, as opposed to like me standing in the middle of Detroit and just being like, I feel one with this city, and the person that's like honking their horn behind me, like, asshole, get out of the road. What the hell do you think you're doing? What do you mean you're in tune with this city? I'm trying to get to on delivery.
You're gonna be in tune with
my
bumper if you don't move.
You can still.
Not saying that I haven't done this. Not saying that I have.
I feel like in that sense, though, you can still find the magic of nature because, like, for me, one of the most, and this is going to sound a little bit corny, but one of the most magical experiences I ever had was watching my daughter be born. Like the act of birth, like, even though you know what it is, like that's like a magician pulling a rabbit out of a hat. You just pulled a person out of a person.
I mean, I can't speak from firsthand experience, but
that's a magical moment.
My
you know
friends,
what I mean? Like, you get overwhelmed by all this. It's like you said, it's that nostalgia. I've never been here before, but I've seen it, and it's the act of life. You're seeing life come into existence, and that's
they
magical.
Take that first breath, and all of a sudden they start making noises.
Right, and you're like, this is a thing now. Like something was just created, just like something was, even though it was already in the body, but you just saw something birthed into the universe. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like, what else is magic besides watching something appear? That magician pulled it out of their sleeve,
and that's why the magician throws all this confetti. Like,
a little bit more disgusting stuff during a pregnancy than confetti, but yeah, same thing. Like nature it's magical, and you lose the vision of that magic, especially as you get older, where it's it's
when you don't have as much time to spend in it, right?
Yeah, you get used to the magic. You're like, oh, I've seen that trick before. It doesn't stop the trick from being any more magical. You've just lost appreciation because you've seen it so many times. But it's like, even like the time I was thinking about, I was writing a bag get caught on the wind. Like, it's the simplest aspect, but it's just so mesmerizing.
I watch it every single time, even on my drive back. Like, I'll be driving my car, I'll see a bag just like in the wind, like, hopefully that does not hit my windshield.
Well, that's the magic power of invisibility right there. The wind, something with so much force and so much strength that we can't see unless something's caught.
We can only see its actions what its actions are being performed on.
Right. It's magic. We just said invisibility, magic. You know, what if that's where we derive all these magical powers from? Is like powers of nature that we wish we had. You know what I mean?
I feel like that's kind of how it started. Like, in terms of like the power of fire, the power of earth, the power of water, the power of air, Avatar.
To control the world around you, because
that's
you're so out of control.
Those are the four. It was the four basic elements, but then you had the basic elements that broke off and spread, and then you have the different sides of different things, where you have like power of regeneration. Oh dang, that's a power I should have said. Power of regeneration, the power of revival, the power of blood manipulation, power of
it's the same as water mutation.
Oh no, we're
75% water. If you can control water, you can control blood.
Well, that was the whole deal. That's the whole deal with blood. That was the whole deal with blood bending with Avatar. Like, they talked about it briefly in the first series, but then in especially in like Korra, like, it comes back and it's more.
Could you use blood bending for regeneration then? If you used it for the good side instead of using it for killing people, could you like focus their blood in different areas, stop bleeding, cauterize stuff? Like,
you could, but there's also there's the bacterial piece in the infectional side of that. Like,
what bending is that? Animal bending?
That would be bacterial
bending? Ooh, bacteria bender.
That would be like
bender?
Regenerating cells, but like regenerating cells with bacteria.
Interesting.
So like infecting the cells after you generate. Oh Jesus, that'd be crazy.
You could take all the good bacteria out of someone's body, so they just like digest.
Now
themselves.
That would be a miracle ability.
Well,
so it's very similar.
Good bacteria keeps you alive.
So that right there is similar to an anime that I'm watching right now that is insane, and it's redo of a healer. I think Kaifuku is the other name for it, and basically this, like, he's a healer. He touches, he basically whatever he touches, and then his ability is heal, and he will literally heal your ailment, but then he takes in the effects of that ailment, or I'm sorry, he takes in like your entire past, but it feels
Oh.
like that
Oh.
ailment to a degree. Like
Kind of Wolverine-esque a little bit. Because the same how or no, yeah, or was it Rogue, where she would like save them, but she would also take like the injury on herself or something like that.
I think that was Rogue, something to that level.
That's what it made me think of. Yeah.
Yeah, but it was really interesting because it's like, yeah, you think about it like a healer, they heal, but like you flip it around to where like the healer hurts themselves to do their job.
Like
Right.
everything's got a trade-off, right?
And there's more than just physical pain. So that makes sense why he's taken on a lot of the past. He's taken on more than just your physical pain. He's taken on your mental pain and your mental anguish.
And that's the part that hit you in that first like
Ooh.
1 or 2 episodes of the anime.
Depression, anxiety,
everything.
Like,
you see their past. If they were, God forbid, they were raped, you see it, you feel it, everything. It's such brutal. It's an
Is this
anime.
an episode?
This is an anime.
That's
an episode you're describing.
I'm not trying to give away too many spoilers because the anime itself has messed up in terms of things and topics that they bring to light. The progression is really good, so it is really good, and I do enjoy watching it for the progression. And it puts yourself, like, you put yourself in that person's situation, and you're just like, I would absolutely be doing, because like this person has reasons for what they do in the anime. Like all we're doing right here is just describing how this person works, but it's interesting that anime can go in these different they can follow these different paths, that it's like for whatever audience that they're catered to, but all different sorts of anime. It's not just about like ninjas and like,
right, it's exploring a whole new universe. They're creating a world, and they're saying, hey, look at what happened if the world worked like this. You know what I mean? And like what these people would do in these situations. That's a good writer, is like, that thing never happened, but they put themselves into that character saying, oh, if I did have those powers, what would I do with that? What would what would be my weaknesses? What would be my strengths? What would be I afraid of? Like, you have to think about that when you write, because otherwise it doesn't come across right, because it's like, what would you do? As a human?
Absolutely. And then you think about it, like that's really the magic of everything. Like in terms of that whole industry, just the endless capabilities that you can literally just think of anything these days, because literally almost every single thing and more things are still thought of, but a lot of things have been thought and have been made an anime about.
There's a little bit of time where you have to get yourself into that magic too, because like we've talked about this a few times with anime, where you need like 3 episodes, and that's like your time to get into the world. You have to like cast yourself out of this and like enter their world and be able to like suspend your disbelief and understand this isn't how the world works, but they've built enough of a world around it to make you say, oh, well, the continuity, like this makes sense because this also makes sense, and they check and balance themselves inside of that.
They do that all within that first 3 episodes too. It's the character development.
Absolutely. They're
show you the location,
everyone,
the main plot lines. This is what happens. Yeah. This is what you're going. And after episode 3, it's, do you want to keep going or do you want to stop?
That's literally why my roommate downloads up to 5 episodes of every single anime that airs, and then he'll watch it, and then he'll decide if he wants to continue it or not.
Yep.
You got to give it that fair window of time, and that's with even any show or anything, because it's just uncomfortable at first. You have to take yourself out of your own mindset and think like somebody else, and it's not always the easiest thing to do.
It's not, yeah.
And sometimes some of these animes, it's very tough for them to put everything that they need to accomplish in just this brief 30-minute, 23-minute, and that's what they are these days, 23-minute episode. Like, I have to cram all of this in 23 minutes. It's like a lot of them do put a lot in that 23 minutes, but it's not enough to like give the entire story, like Kev just said, like going from episode 1 to episode 3.
Ask somebody to tell them about tell me about yourself in 23 minutes. Tell me exactly who you are as a full person in 23 minutes. Go.
You know what I mean? Like, nowadays, that's all people are looking for.
Oh, they want 5 minutes. They want to know you in 5 minutes, and that's sometimes even too long. You know what I mean? That's where like people like to judge a book by the cover, because then they don't have to ask questions or further understand you. They just get to, oh, that's just like that, because I've met people like that before, so they're going to be like this. You know what I mean? And then, boom, life's easier that way.
That's why the highest cost of running a business is training, because of turnover.
I recently had a friend ask me to tell her my story. So then I told her like but then she stopped me and she was like, "This is too long. You're telling me your life story, and I just want your story, like your current and your like abbreviated life story." It got me thinking in like a different way.
Synopsis.
Yeah, basically.
I want the cliff notes.
basically. And I'm thinking to myself, like,
well, that's a good question.
Back in the day, you used to just listen to everyone. Like, if like nowadays, people don't have the attention span per se. So, but you would listen to like all of the details and like all of the details that mattered. And nowadays, it seems like in a lot of cases, which to each their own, sometimes in good and sometimes in not, but like it's the minute details that used to make the biggest difference that make the least amount of difference to people now.
Well, I think that's a progression as you get older, because look at little kids when you ask them to tell you a story about what happened. Yeah. They add so much other details and data because they don't fully understand the event and what's important. So same thing about yourself. When someone asks you early in life, you have to tell them all your experiences, because that's to you summing up your life. But as you get older, you understand more what points defined you. You know what I mean? What points were actually key points in my life that set off moments. And maybe by someone asking someone that, you're seeing how self-reflective and self-aware they are.
But she wasn't asking for the cliff notes of your entire life. She was just asking for Smokey right here, right now.
Basically.
Smokey on the weekly. Moment. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Well, like on the weekly. Yeah, probably. Right. Like what?
Which at the time I didn't understand, but now I do understand a lot more.
That's big too. You know, I think of that sometimes. Like I'll go through a day and it's the boys when we go to bed. When I put the boys to bed every night, we do what was your favorite thing today? And a lot of nights it's like, God, what did I do today?
Right.
You know? I can't stand days like that, because it's like, okay, what could I have done then?
Yeah, literally.
Or what did I do? Because I know I didn't
if you can't think of like what you did in the day, then like what could you have done in that day?
Yeah. Exactly that, or it's like, I know I didn't just sit here and do nothing literally all day. I had to have done something. What was it?
See, like I do something to that to a degree, except for like when I go to bed, I more like hit rewind on like everything that happened through the day, or I rewind it back to the beginning and think about everything that happened in that day, and like think about everything and think about like how things ended, how things began and how things ended, just like thinking about the progression. And this is kind of like me having my decompressing moments, like just like thinking about the different universes, like earlier today, if I didn't cross that sidewalk at this time, like what would have happened? What would that universe look like? And if I didn't get this sandwich from this deli, if I would have gone to this other place and gone to this other place and given a compliment to this cashier, like how things could have just been completely different.
I'm telling you, these are book ideas. That was very detailed.
Well, speaking of the different universes too, like because I've been hooked on that lately too, like, and where there's even a thing I was reading recently where we're not even a separate universe, we're just different patches of the same universe,
different dimensions within the same universe, right?
Yes, just different segments, just different segments that are folded in different ways. And when they were talking about that, they said there's patches that don't have to follow the laws of science like we do. There's ones that, you know, their elements and they're all different structures will interact with each other different than they do here. That's magic. That's literal.
That's
like,
beyond the comprehension.
If you can create something from nothing, and if you don't have to abide by the laws of physics, and you don't have to
but I'm sure they have their own set of laws of physics.
But to us, it's magic, and to them, what we can do is, do they have any rule, or is there places where they don't?
That's the thing. Like if they're all like, like in terms of like how those things are working, it's probably normal, but to anyone that's not from that normality, it's going to be otherworldly. And that's where it's going to be like going to like I think about like the episode of Futurama, Da Vinci, that they go to like they go to this planet that's like all Da Vinci people and all like just like all the different like things that like Leonardo da Vinci would talk about, and like all the different like things that he would teach and stuff. And they basically make fun of like Leonardo da Vinci as like the dumbest of that planet. And that's why he left that planet and came to Earth, where he was the smartest on the planet.
That's awesome.
And they even make fun of the fact that they're like, yeah, like it took you guys how long to even like get here? Like
right, like it was nothing.
Everything has been in place. All you had to do was this, but it took you like thousands of years to do this.
Yeah.
And then you get to the planet, they haven't aged, and it's like, my gosh.
That's true too. Like science gets closer to magic. You know what I mean? Like even the science you don't understand, or the technology you don't understand. Like native like tribes,
they kind of drive each other sometimes, don't they? Like magic. Yeah. The wonders of magic drive science.
Yeah, people see stuff in movies and try to replicate it. I want to shoot fire through my wrist.
Well, why can't I do that?
I want to levitate.
And
with
and especially now, especially when you relate the two in terms of like, I'm gonna put science into like kind of like Mythbusters along the lines. Like I'm gonna take real science and I'm going to demonstrate, and I'm gonna attempt to replicate what is considered a myth, magic, not possible, whatever you call it.
Right. Even magnets, like, which is where this somewhat started, because Kevin sent me this random question about. Kev actually sent me this random message about, are magnets and magic related? And it's like I generally understand about magnetic fields and things like that, but magnets are magic. Like that, you can make stuff hover. You can you can't see forces and it pulls stuff. Like,
again, it's just like the wind, right?
Yeah, it's like you're doing something without me seeing.
We can produce magnets, though. We
can produce wind.
We can produce wind. We can produce these different elements per se, but in terms of like how they pull and how they like reject each other, that's where like it goes to the science, and then the naysayers to the science are like, yeah, it's magic at the end of the day. Just
right. Like, I don't know. I feel like it's hard to experiment with some of those things. I think we know a lot, but I feel like there's certain avenues that we don't think about traveling down. And don't ask me what those are, because I have no clue. I'm no expert. I'm just obsessed with magnets. They're interesting as hell. But
they are. They definitely are.
It's like the wind, what are some things that we haven't tried with it? Because we don't know that we can try it with that, because we can't 100% see it. We can kind of see it using materials and stuff to show us how the patterns work, but show me that in a 3-dimensional. Show me, can we weave those? Can those be detached from their north and south and reattached? I don't know. I don't know how magnets work. I think they're interesting as hell, and I think they're pretty important to something.
Same, and they're super interesting where we've looked into them quite a bit, but even as you look into them, it's so hard to understand, because it's like you want to know. Yes. You want to know how this magic works.
Yeah.
But it's,
that
it's hard to understand.
They both start with mag,
Yeah.
Or magnets, the original magnet or magic.
All right.
Well, aren't magnets manipulated per se, and that's how batteries work?
That's one way.
That's using electricity or electromagnets sometimes, yeah. But there are the rare earth magnets too that they use in a lot of that.
And motors too for manipulating the magnets.
Yeah, where we can't actually make those magnets. We have to find those in nature.
Right. Again, nature just creates more magic, because that's what nature do. Nature make magic.
When we need some new source of magic, it just, hey, here you go.
We make stuff that sticks stuff together. Just
We're just gonna have to wait for what nature comes up with next, and then that'll be the next superpower.
I was watching a Good Gaia documentary on YouTube the other day about portals and other dimensions and stuff.
Portals.
And yes, so do you guys know about quartz crystals?
In what in what context?
In like nature, how there are such things as quartz crystals that you can find in abundance in nature.
Yes, yes.
Did you
I
know-
do vaguely recall learning something to the degree in my geology class.
Did you know when put under enough pressure, they'll generate electrical energy?
yes, I've actually learned that recently, and there's certain crystals that can even harness more. Like there's this
Yes.
one that's super expensive, but it can like pretty much work like a battery and store energy with inside of it, to my understanding.
Yes. So they're saying there's a bunch of these like clusters that they think could have like charged a portal because it could have had enough energy in those quartz crystals that made portals to other
Interesting.
dimensions back in the day.
Well, Tesla talked about universal power. There's you have the rotation of the earth, which is energy. You have all the like the lava and stuff sloshing around inside the core. Like you have a bunch of heat energy and all these other energy that's just dissipating into the earth. And that's where like Tesla talked about if you could tap into that and do universal energy. And so it's like, what would be better at tapping into that than Earth itself that's been doing it for years? You know what I mean? So it's like,
it's a very long sustaining battery.
right.
But at the same time, what stops us from tapping into that and all of a sudden we cool the core down and the planet stops rotating and we destroy
Start using up all the energy. Yeah, like we love to do.
Yes.
Everything we
Yes.
find. It's like, oh, that sounds
not
awesome. No.
It'll save
It'll harness the sun and then the
generations
sun will go out quiet.
until 10 years later when it's not enough.
Right. Right. Well, I mean, that's going to be their problem. You know?
Exactly.
They'll
It's not
figure out
ours.
what to do. They'll
We
do another
made
planet
their
or
life
something.
so much better by finding this.
Right.
They should be grateful, those little shits.
They're gonna be happy they don't have to walk to the bathroom. You know what I
Yes.
mean, that's gonna be worth
Yeah.
all this.
And it
Paving
automatically goes right
they're
to
paving the road
Right.
for us.
That's where like one thing that I would love that's almost magic in that same sense that Tesla talked about is like cordless electricity. And this is something that's like even boggled my mind because I want to like figure out how to engineer that, but where like kind of like your Wi-Fi, where you could have something be charging or feeding like an electric signal from across the room. You know what I mean? Just off of waves or off of it sending electricity towards it.
That would be something.
I've read into that. I guess a lot of people who put the kibosh to that were like the radar people because it would mess with their instruments and stuff, all the electrical waves flying through the sky.
Really?
Yeah, because electricity and magnetism are two sides of the same coin.
Right. They have charges.
So so if you
Yes.
send in electrical charges to the air constantly, you've got all your instruments.
Well, couldn't you read how the electricity bounces off objects and then do your mapping based off that? If you have
Yeah, but they
electric...
didn't want to do that.
Yeah,
That
at the end of
created
the
work for
day.
them.
Exactly.
Because
Who knows? I
man.
mean, that could
They've already created
That's
progress.
probably the
Wasn't
next
giving you
move.
electricity enough.
No?
the next move is going to be a cordless electricity.
That's
There were plans for it. Supposedly, that's the rumor.
that's the power you want, Kev.
I'd love to say
If
it
you could
is.
have something in your hand that could tell something else to be electrified, boom, that's your superpower turned
It
into.
is.
You know what I mean? Like
I just need to get back to my Tesla.
Basically.
you know, we do that with stun guns and stuff. We already try to control the elements.
We do. We
Yeah,
try real hard.
we
with
know
really
how
everything.
to manifest the elements,
Yes,
but we
it's
don't
a perfect
know
way to put it.
how to manipulate the elements.
To a
I feel like
degree,
we more
do.
know how to manipulate. We don't
Yeah,
know how
maybe
to
I
create
can't-
them from
electricity
nothing.
Maybe I
we
can't
do.
even necessarily
Like-
say. I can't. Maybe
Even
I shouldn't say
electricity, we pull from
manipulate.
somewhere else. You know, we store it in
That's
a
true.
battery. We run it from somewhere else. The only time we're really even
We burn coal. We take it from the sun. We use
like the-
wind.
or water or something like that. We're still
of a bitch.
manipulating the energy from somewhere else.
Suppose, yeah.
You know, and same thing with water. We're just telling it, hey, don't go by our houses, go around it. And you know what I mean? We're like manipulating its path.
Right.
By using other elements.
You want to talk about
Right?
an invasive species? Jeez, oh, Pete.
Right? That doesn't learn their lesson.
We're pretty bad.
Yeah.
That's why it's going to be crazy when we go to other worlds and we find if there's other species that have these same tendencies that human and mankind have, or if it's just something that has been adopted by our world.
I think there's got to be some out there, but I'm sure there are probably some out there that go about it a lot more responsible than humans do.
They could,
And there's
or
probably
they could
some
be
that
the
go
bigger bully
less.
on the schoolyard.
Yes.
And they could be the ones who come and see, oh, these guys they're not doing this right. They still care about each other. Let's take all their shit. Like,
Right.
you know
right.
what I mean?
It becomes
Like,
Walking Dead world or something.
yeah, and they just, we're out of resources. That's the only mission now is to get more resources. So let's suck them dry. Like,
Yep. Take advantage of every
we do.
situation because somebody else do it to you.
We're like, we need more supplies.
Well, right now, the whole world is trying to be unified per se, that we're not necessarily like adopting the whole like Walking Dead mentality, even though you do have some people that in the back of their minds think about it, but we're not like, I'm not going outside my house and like looking to the right and looking to the left and expecting to see something that's going to be like putting myself in danger.
Right, but I think Crick's saying something from the other dimension feels that way though, and then we
Right.
interact.
It very well could be.
I had a friend who told me when COVID hit, they bought a bunch of food, bought a gun. You know what I mean? There was riots and stuff going on. So people can already get in that mindset right away.
Oh,
there's
absolutely.
people who have bunkers and like there's doomsday preppers as a freaking show. You know what I mean? We want.
Oh yeah, literally.
Segment of society is ready for that and kind of wants it to happen. You know,
because
like,
they see that
as
the only solution for us, for this society actually getting better, is to rebuild.
Zombie apocalypse.
Yeah.
Yes.
Rebuild it from the ground up.
Yeah. With magic.
And that's why when COVID hit, they took all the toilet paper.
All right.
Right.
That's the secret to good structures is you build them out of toilet paper. So that's where they're going to do paper mache.
It makes sense. Literally, a friend of mine was selling toilet paper for $40 a roll when it first was in the shortage.
Was he making money?
I don't know if he actually he never told us if he actually sold the toilet paper, but he would tell us all the messages that he would get.
A lot of angry people.
A lot of angry people.
Okay. Send it to customer service.
That's where we had one thing of toilet paper, and we never we're like, oh, maybe we should buy more. It lasted us the whole time until toilet paper restocked. Like we never ended up. We were fine.
You guys ever poop?
Poop a lot.
You had one roll of toilet paper.
Your house is a little bit different.
You only need three things, and
there's only
if you do it right, you only need 3
men
wipes
in their house.
Max.
You've got a family of 6 very healthy human bodies.
And I would not saying this to be any kind of stereotyping because I've lived with women, but women go through a lot more toilet paper. They just I don't know why it is, but living in a house
with women and 4-year-olds bastards.
Yeah, that's true. Because they're oh, I need this much to wipe.
Yeah, literally.
We had the first clog yesterday or the other day.
No.
Oh Jesus.
Dude wipes.
Dude wipes.
The pack was brand new. Dad. There were 3 left afterwards.
Oh no.
Oh jeez. Gotta be
it too, or they're just you go.
Definitely have to be careful of that.
Magic of wonder of children.
God. It's not like the guys necessarily use the toilet paper to pat their penises per se.
Correct.
But the females are definitely
a little wiggle.
They gotta dry, so
I get it. That's what I'm saying. I'm not doing. It's an observation from my actual life of what I've seen, and it's no judgment. It's we don't have a female in the house, so we go through. I feel a little bit less toilet paper for partially that reason.
I can understand because it's just the 3 of us here, and we go through toilet paper, but we don't go through it a stupid amount. And honestly, the place I was at before, we didn't really go through toilet paper a stupid amount either.
Toilet paper doesn't seem like it's really that big of a commodity. I don't know why they wanted to run on toilet paper.
Until
What
they
didn't they
take
want us to
it
pay
all.
attention to?
Until they take it all away from you, and they're just like, "Good luck."
The people
And
who
now you just
hoard are the
gotta
ones
use
that don't know how to
magic
wipe
to
their
make toilet
butts.
paper.
Right.
So they need more attempts at it. So they need more tries.
Oh man, I didn't even check Halloween. Did you see a bunch of houses TP'd or anything?
No, it's probably too expensive.
Yeah, I feel like I haven't seen a house TP'd in quite a while. Probably because they're like, "Bro, that's just a lot of toilet
It's
paper."
like throwing gold at
yeah,
houses.
yeah.
these days.
That's basically just like throwing money away.
You see the neighbors out in their yard just
Right.
wiping their butts in the
Adult
lawn. Man,
I mean, like
bring us
at the,
back
at the end of
home.
the day, you
Oh,
can spend your
God.
money however you want. You can buy whatever
30
you
cents,
want.
40 cents, 50 cents.
My prayers have been answered.
I think I remember seeing something about that. Like someone's house would get TP'd, and then someone would just go over there, like, "Oh, thank God!"
Yes. Quick before it rains.
Right.
Yeah, literally.
Before the neighbors see it.
Yeah, the neighbors wake up and they're just like,
It's like
Someone-
the zombie apocalypse again. Toilet paper. There's toilet paper outside.
"Is someone here?"
Johnny, come quick.
Look at this guy. He dropped a boatload of cash. I don't care. I want the toilet paper.
Does he have any toilet paper?
You know how much it hurts to wipe your ass with money?
Oh man.
It's
Not as
insanely.
much linen in there as they advertise.
There's really not.
So what do you guys think about dragons?
I think dragons are awesome.
Do you think they were real before? They had to have been.
They
right?
had to have been like way back long ago. But then how on earth would you kill off that entire but then Game of
They
Thrones?
kill themselves off.
Well, they say too is like, why are dragons so tied in with magic? You know, I mean, there's tons of mythical creatures, but dragons always have like magical powers or magical essence, or they have some kind
Or
of
there
just
was magic in
straight-
the world around them.
or they
Mhm.
or they birthed from magic. Like magic is always like synonymous with dragons.
If there's
It's
a
because
dragon,
the-
there's
it's
a wizard
because
somewhere.
They could manifest whatever that element was. If they were a fire dragon, if they were a snow dragon, or an
But we
ice
had-
dragon, an earth dragon, a magma dragon.
We had dinosaurs, and they didn't need that. They didn't need magic to be that big.
Well,
you know what I
honestly,
mean?
a lot of people say that dragons are just like an interpretation slightly askewed from the dinosaurs because of the similarities in their in their qualities.
You see, like that would make sense too, because you see dragons in almost every culture's writings, and like that's where I was trying to do some research in this, and it was kind of hard to find information on. But like, I was trying to figure out like what our ancestors thought when they did archaeological digs, when they were trying to build a pyramid and found these old ancient bones of giant creatures. What was their interpretation? What did they do with that? Where did that thing come from in their mind? You know
Like
what
they
I mean?
had to have found fossils in the desert, right? I didn't even
They
think
had to have.
Everywhere.
Especially if
for,
there
for,
is
and
this
for
big
his
basement in the
how much
pyramids.
space that they used.
They
like,
dug the
had
catacombs.
to
They
have.
dug underneath, even in like South America. They the giant pyramids and stuff that they built there. They had to build the foundation. You have to dig deep, and your chances of finding some bone at some point has got to be good. And then you're finding these giant skulls with these giant teeth, and it's like, is that where we get dragons from? Because they found that and they're like, well, if I draw this out, this is what it kind of looks like. Because if you look at the progression of dinosaurs and what our understanding in science is of them, they've changed drastically, because it's people who study bones and different things relate them to animals we have now to say, no, this is probably how it walked.
I
Or
still
this
have
is
a
how
hard
it's
time
did.
accepting that velociraptors had feathers.
right. Because you
Or
were
a
you were
T-Rex.
primed. You were primed when you were younger.
T-Rex has turned into a
Yeah.
giant
This is how it
chicken
is,
with its
you
tiny
know.
arms.
From Jurassic Park 1, velociraptors did not have flowers.
And it's
Right.
just it's that cumulative understanding and knowing that science isn't exact. It's not an exact science. It's, to the best of our knowledge, this is probably how this thing
Yes.
looks. We found 80% of its bones. and
With
they
the
kinda let
evidence
bones
we
like
have, this is the conclusion we've come up with.
Right.
And it's all just using what has been put on paper, per se. But
exactly, yeah.
like what we're talking about-
on paper.
how much
That only
hasn't
makes
been
it
put
that's
on
the only thing
paper,
that makes it
and
science, is putting it on
whatever
paper.
hasn't been put on paper, what what doesn't have to be loosely defined as magic and what is actually something that's feasible.
Or what is something that's been put on paper and has been destroyed over time? That, or even today, deliberately, you know, some of these places in like Turkey and all these old places, you know, they're all these old historical churchy sites are from 10,000 years ago or something, and they're just blowing them up to get rid of the knowledge.
And it's corporations even do that.
Exactly. That's probably
they do it to suppress technology. Who are like, oh, we already have this thing that works and we're making money off of it. We don't want you to come out with, you know, that water powered thing or anything like this. So we're just going to nix that. You know what I mean? Because we're making money. It's like, well, we're going to run out of coal at some point.
Yes, coal. We're going to run out of fossil fuels. You know, it's a lot
of those different materials, and that's why it's such a big push right now to find alternative materials, so that when that day comes, we're not just sitting on our hands.
You can't suppress that knowledge.
What if Antarctica was like our measurement for how many fossil fuels we have left, and when all of the ice is melted, we've burned up all of our fossil fuels because the planet is at a temperature where the ice can no longer be sustained.
You mean that the planet needs more fossils to refuel that?
Yes.
So how's it going to get those?
Well, at that point, we'll have more carbon in the air. So the organisms that survive on meat only die first.
Yep.
Yeah, basically.
Aquatic might be a little bit better off than land.
Usually the aquatic survives a lot better off. That's why there's some sharks that, you know, their ancestries are 5 billion years old and stuff.
And think about it, all their food is literally in their ecosystem.
Yeah, especially if you're deep down, especially if that's a whole different world.
That food's a lot more scarce deep down, though.
To our understanding, we find volcanic vents all the time that have like it's less than far in between,
teeming with life.
But they don't. They get energy from different places, and they know how to conserve energy better. So like it's a different game altogether.
But that's where when rubber hits the road, the bigger animals tend to die first because they need more to eat, and if that's harder to find, you get hungrier faster.
That's why we're here.
Exactly.
That's where the dinosaurs are gone. You know, like, and less oxygen. Oxygen also ties in with that sizing as well. You know, the more oxygen in the atmosphere, I think with dinosaurs here, it was like much higher. But that's where forest fires were much more deadly too, because you have much more oxygen in the air, it's going to burn a lot faster.
Yeah, it's basically like being in a closed room at that point, right?
Yeah, you have just so much oxygen, so much fuel that it's just everywhere. You know, and but at the same time, that's what let it grow so big.
And especially nowadays when oxygen is made from so many different places.
That's why I always wondered if you took like a certain animal or took like even a person and just like put them in a high oxygen rich environment for multiple generations. Yeah. Because they'll do that with fruit flies because they only have like a day lifespan. So they'll be like, what happens you guys in a few generations when we do this to you? And yes, if you give them oxygen, I wonder if they'd start getting bigger.
Do you think they'd be able to survive out of the non-rich oxygen? Or do you think it'd be harder for them to breathe?
Probably not. Yeah, because their bodies would adapt and they would either die off or slowly transition back down in my opinion.
Well, you can also think about like places that like are more natural, that you do have more richer oxygen, something that's more fresh, as opposed to like the oxygen of like urban life and like city, where you can see, like you can legitimately see the difference. Like think about someone that grew up in the city as opposed to someone that grew up in like the country, where think about that difference in the air quality, that you literally go from these different places that you can appreciate the difference, and you can appreciate either where you're from or where you're going.
Elevation.
Yeah, I was gonna say altitude's the same way. Like that's one thing I've noticed from moving out here.
Climbing a mountain, you can really appreciate like people who can live up there in like zero oxygen.
Yeah, I could only imagine, just because I've not climbed very many mountains myself.
I've attempted one. I think I made it halfway.
We manipulate that too. Like that's where like our Olympic athletes train in places like Colorado, where it's altitude, and then perform in lower altitudes. And that's, you know, for that manipulation.
They train with less oxygen.
Overabundance. Yes. So that way when
then
their
their body
has it.
doesn't need it as much per se. At least that's the idea. And then you've got other athletes that are going on like training on like sand dunes and like manipulating like the muscles in their bodies.
Right, for the event that they're doing. Yeah, they're not doing the same training regimen for every single, athlete. Yeah, it all requires muscle, but it requires it in different areas.
It's crazy how many different landscapes you can see in the world. Like sand dunes versus a city versus a countryside versus the mountains.
And you think about it like just many, many years ago, how it was all probably just the basics, like you were talking about, like forest, swamp,
a few log houses here and there,
plains.
Oh, a guy came in the other day and we talked about this, where he said he built one of the like most eco-friendly houses in all of Colorado, and got an award for it in like 2018. And he said it was super expensive. It's super expensive to build eco-friendly.
Oh, absolutely.
But the next step that he's on, and this is something that I actually thought of before too, is what if we went away from such stationary homes? Like if we were in such homes where like it was nice, it had everything you needed, it was very stable, but it was more like a mobile home. And then you took all these houses and started ripping them up so you could see the world for its true beauty without having to affect it so much. And you could still have all your luxuries and everything you want, but there's less buildings taking up space, so you could just travel in your vehicle and see the world for,
I think that's the thing,
for magic.
Well, there are some people that legitimately like live in a van or like travel the world in a van.
What if that was the culture of a whole society?
We got back on our nomadic roots a little bit.
Exactly. We wanted to discover more. We wanted to be more inspired.
And we'd be doing it without conquering other places this time.
Nature would come back more.
I feel like because in order for us to do that now, we need to not have as many bills per se, because like think about it, like if we were able to just live without having to pay a tax to live, without having to pay a expense to live, that you could literally like spend your free time, that you don't necessarily have to worry about like amassing the minimum income to sustain your lifestyle, that you can just think about. And that's why a lot of these people, they just do this in their spare time, like in terms of like traveling. They work full time so that they can save money up so that they can go on trips.
Right. But one of your biggest expenses on that though is your rent. For
absolutely.
Me, at least out here, my rent for the land that I stay on is one of my biggest expenses. So it's like you could still have your full functioning life and do your job and do everything else. Like you just don't have to pay for this single plot of land that you live on. It's more.
Well, that's the thing. Like that's the caveat in terms of what are you going to do and where are you going to do it?
Well, with us being able to do virtually, you could. You could do that more.
Then you're not limited to one thing anymore either, really.
You have more land for resources too. You know what I mean? Resources will be cheaper because you have more land to grow goods, so it'll be cheaper.
But I guess to each their own. You can only travel for like, you can't just consistently travel.
Why?
Who says?
I guess that's what I'm talking about. Like if you consist, so yeah, like I said, to each their own, like people can, you would have to essentially live a life of very, very, very little means. How do I explain this? So
you're saying in the sense of traveling, like you don't want to have to pack up a bunch of stuff every time you go to travel next.
You would have less than a house. You're right. You would have to list less means in a house because you'd have to fit. It'd be bigger than just a.
But
van.
How are you going to get water?
There, you could either have a recycling system. There's tons of ways that now that we have water from either trapping rain. You can have systems that pull rain out of or water out of the air. You can purify systems. You can still go buy it from people. You could buy auxiliary and have like water fill ups where you go do fill up your water tank just like you would if you're going to go camping. Or go to more natural resources, because if we have more land, we can make more lakes that will naturally pick up more rainwater and filter it, and then we can pour more water from there.
and then you can teach yourself to hunt. So you can at least
Hunt, fish.
you can at least sustain yourself. Although
Or
if everyone in the world were to go to were to adopt a hunter gatherer mentality, we would wipe out all the animals on this face of the earth.
you could still specialize. You have a dude who does the hunting and like, or has like his different setups, and like he's the hunter. He's the one who brings food and like helps like process it and sell it to people. And then you do a different service that you can trade for that. Just like we do now, you're just mobile as you do it. It doesn't mean everybody
You
has
want to be a
have their own food.
gypsy.
Yes.
A gypsy with a purpose.
A gypsy with a purpose. A gypsy, not just, it's more to just not take up so much land. It's like, why do we say we own everything? You know what I mean? The earth's
Yeah,
like,
why do we have to
we just laid claim to
put a
everything.
mark on it? Yeah.
You know, and it's like we've killed some of that magic. We've killed, you think how many awe-inspiring, just magical sceneries that society's just destroyed by putting houses upon houses upon. Like there's places I'll drive in Colorado where it's this beautiful mountain backdrop, and then 30 houses that look exactly the same right next to each other.
Yep.
It's like that kills it. Like that kills it.
Well, the underlying issue is the population that is continuing to rise, and the population that needs housing per se. And what you're talking about, if everyone were to have their own like trailer per se that we all live in, you have to have a way to power your trailer. So there has to be enough resources to provide
So there needs to be an
the
electrical
materials.
company, right?
Well,
Electrical energy, or
there has
water-
to be a
water
level
engines, if you get
of
there.
an electrical company. Yes. And if you're constantly traveling, like in order for you to utilize that electricity, it's not free. You have to pay for the use of electricity.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So in order to pay for electricity, you have to be able to at least manage income to be able to pay for said electricity.
And you do that by doing whatever you're doing on the road.
I guess that's what I talk about more when I say like it is possible for someone to live a life of very, very, very little means, and then they could literally tour the United States or tour the world 365 days of the year and be in a new place every single
night.
day.
Because you don't live anywhere. You live everywhere. You live on the world. You live on this planet. You know
And
what I mean?
and this
You're an
person,
earthling.
I mean, in order to accomplish said thing, well, that's the thing. Like you have to have a driver's license. In order to have a driver's license, you have to have a residence.
as that's the system as we have it now. I'm saying if a whole society switched to this, so it would just be, hey, you're coming of age where you're going to start being able to get your own house now. So we got to teach you
And
how
you
to
have
drive
parents'
and,
house.
and take care of your. Yeah, exactly.
You can always use your parents' address.
Hey, you broke that law and you didn't show up for your legal proceeding. So we got to know on paper where you might be staying at.
Your
Yeah,
vehicle.
send it to my address.
They can track your vehicle. You know
Or
what I mean?
if they had,
Everybody's
I mean, I
vehicle's
guess
tracked.
if there's tracking on vehicle,
Like if a criminal runs state lines, they don't just go, oh, he's in a new state. They have call outs. We have this model, this vehicle, this is what they own. You have a register for the vehicle that you've bought so they can check it against their database for what you own. And then they can be like, he was in this area. And by that time, they're going to have cameras everywhere too. So it's be like, we saw this, and they'll just track you the whole way down. They don't
What
even
if
have a device in it.
politicians had stayed in a different city, like the governor of a state had stayed in a different city in their state each night?
Yeah.
That way they can see what's going on in their state, like legit going on.
That's
That
what
would-
someone
that
would
would
say
be
to stay in
crazy.
Flint and drink
And
the water. You know what I mean?
think
That shit
about
wouldn't
you think
happen.
about like the same thing in terms of like the president of the United States, someone that stays in a different state every night.
Yeah. Can never stay in the same city twice.
Yeah. You have to go.
Probably be a lot harder target for other countries than just the White House.
Right?
That's true too.
No kidding. Or the Pentagon.
Yeah.
Like, okay, we got intel that he's gonna be at this place at this time on this day, and then that time and day comes, and then they're there, and then they're just, what happened? And literally like 2 hours prior to, they're just like, oh, we're gonna skip that event, we're gonna go and do this.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And they're just like, assassination foiled.
That's what they do with Air Force One. That's already what they do. Is like no one knows where Air Force One's going to drop or anything else.
They have
like,
2 planes, I guess.
Exactly. Yep. They have a distractor plane where it's like it's already like that. Just be on a car level where they probably have 5 of them that are all around the same area. So it's like, which one is the president's? You know.
You got a 1 in 5 chance.
And he'd probably be the one that looks like a beater that's not even any of those 5. You know.
See, now you've got a 1 in 50 chance, and each of those 50 chances have like 7,000 chances within them.
Mm-hmm.
Once the president starts saying somewhere else every night, that'd be cool. That'd be cool. And to be able to get out and just see the U.S. and to talk to random people, it'd be cool to be the president just for that.
Well, even for people, that's where I'd want it too, is because moving to a different state, the mentality in different states and the way that people look at things, it's not better, it's different.
Yeah.
And the more different views that you can add to your repertoire to make your decisions is great. Like, there's great things about Michigan. There's great things about doing stuff yourself and pulling up your bootstraps and all that kind of aspect I love out of there, you know. And then there's things about Colorado where it's, you know, free thinking and you know, very forward thinking and progressive, you know what I mean? So if you can marry those two, holy cow, you know what I mean? A progressive person who can pull themselves up by their bootstraps and like change the world. Yes, you know, but it's like we need to diversify that and merge those mindsets.
One would think that would be the solution to the puzzle.
One would think that'd be the goal of everybody too, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of times it seems like it's the opposite.
Well, you're comfortable. You're set in your way. You know how things work around you.
That's true.
You know?
I wouldn't necessarily go as it's. I would agree that it is sometimes the opposite, but what I would say is sometimes it can't just be everyone getting along with everyone. Like,
you can't make everybody happy. Everybody's going to have disagreements.
There's always going to be that other side.
But there's something magic to a conversation to listen to and understand that side versus just getting mad.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. And we can bring those sides closer together too. There's always going to be another side. But the thing is we can bring that side together, because what I've learned from almost every situation I've ran to, the solution is never what one side or the other side brings you. It's some accumulation of the two. Like some of them both have good points for why they want to do it the way they want to. And the answer is somewhere in between, and it won't work either way. Because like you said, no one's ever gonna be happy, but it's because the solution is neither thing they want. It's something completely different.
Yes. It's a give take, right?
Yeah.
You can't just expect it to always go in your favor.
Right. Because you don't know how the long term of your decisions, you have an idea based off information that you were taught, and you're like, if I'm going to do this, this might happen, you know? And it's like,
again, conclusions based off the evidence we've managed to gather.
Then God forbid you go do that thing for X amount of years, and then you learn knowledge after X amount of years. And now you're just like, what have I been doing this entire time?
Right.
Right.
That's where thoughts can be magical. Thoughts are, again, something that just appears out of nowhere, and you don't understand where it comes from or how it works until you explore it. And it's what you do with that. Like, it's what you do with those thoughts and what you do with your magic, you know, like,
and at the end of the day, I feel like because of where society is, magic is something that human needs. Like, magic is something that will never die, because as soon as the magic dies is where we have submitted to just believing in what can be proven.
Yeah, that's the only thing that matters.
Can you imagine a world
where we knew thrown away our imagination?
We didn't have to study no more. We didn't have to look stuff up. We didn't have to further progress ideas.
We just knew it all.
Someone just taught you. When you were born at 16, they just cut feet. Nope, you don't know. It's done this way. These are how things are done. Like, we already kind of do that, and we think we're right.
To a degree, yeah.
You know what I mean? But it's like, things are changing and science is changing so much, and even in our lifetimes we've had things retold to us or completely
absolutely
of how we're supposed to think about things. And that's, you know, that's
it's just proven time and time again. Nobody knows anything.
We were brought up as children that Pluto is a planet.
Yeah.
I legitimately remember making a diorama of the solar system with my dad when I was a kid, and there were 9 planets, and Pluto was the 9th.
Poof, it's gone.
And now,
because of ice
It's
age.
not gone.
and then
It's just
all
not
of
a
a
planet.
sudden,
It's a
Right.
big
now
ice
all
ball.
of this
Right.
science
It's a
that has all
dwarf
of this,
something.
all of this stuff on this paper and ink and all of this stuff that's backed by science and knowledge. And I'm a scientist and I do this and that and this. And it's like, but for everyone that was like before you, they weren't.
Do you know how we
They
even
didn't have the
found
same
Pluto?
tools.
Like it was kind of magical how we found Pluto. We found Pluto based on math.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
We knew mathematically, based on how the planets were acting, there should be something else out there pulling on these other planets.
And
And
about this area.
right about this area. So literally some dude sat there and looked at space over, like they took 2 pictures of it time and time again so you could see the difference, because the mind's really good at that. And he would do this time and time again until he was like, it should be right about here. And then he saw just a little smudge, a little blip, and he was like, there is something out there. And it's like,
There
boom,
it is.
magically there's a planet. It's always been there, but now we know it's there. And then the same thing in the reverse. It's like, we've always known it's there, and
The magician revealed his trick.
and it's gone, and it's just, yeah, it's a trick.
What if the entire world were to get telescopes and then all look out of those telescopes simultaneously?
So that would be phenomenal for astronomical science. But what they're already finding out is that you can't do that, because the best place that they get their information from is from mountains, because if you're above the clouds, you're above all the
That's
stuff,
true.
so they can actually
You're going
focus.
through
What
the
I've
clouds.
learned, I've actually like studied the astronomy and stuff, and there's a lot of light pollution
Yes.
in the world.
Mhm.
From
Yeah,
cities
even
and
clouds,
stuff.
like the moon on the clouds, you can get it reflecting
Mhm.
where you can't see nothing. And it's like, what they're running into though is someone lives on those mountains. Someone's laid claim to those mountains long before they've ever been there. So we're already running at, like, astronomers have to like literally battle to put their telescopes up on mountains already for like the good prime locations kind of thing. But if we did do that, yeah, we could see they only have like certain perspectives of the universe based on where they can put these up, based on mathematical like equations where they're like, well, this would be a good focal point, But yeah,
And
they're
that's
perceiving
magic
and the
too.
reason that I
Math is
even
magic.
ask that
math
is
magic.
that in terms of like how far a telescope can go, if one of those telescopes would pick up like a spaceship per se.
Well, they can see pretty far out. The thing is, like, it's about the math. They don't always know what they're seeing.
True.
They just can do the math to understand, oh, well, because it lit up like this means it must be this element, because that's how
Yes.
hot it
Because
got.
they use a lot of the
Or that's-
infrareds and
yeah,
stuff to look at the
true.
wavelengths and the colors.
and how things
And a lot of
reflect off
times-
each other.
A lot of times they only know a planet's there if they're zoomed in really big on the star in that solar system and they see a shadow go across the front of it. That's how they know there's a planet there.
That's where they thought there was a giant structure at that new sun planet they found, because there was an irregular pattern of this giant structure that would block out the sun.
There's something on Mars too that they're finding based off of something that they saw on Earth. They're seeing like structures,
Interesting.
things on Mars that look like they had to have been a civilization or a structure of some type.
Interesting.
Think about that. What's it going to be when we
It
start
is
digging on
crazy.
other planets?
But that's
and we were talking about this on a previous episode. Like, it's gonna be wild when we start exploring into Mars and we get discovered because of doing so.
yeah.
Right, because there's something there that we just happen to break through their front door or something, right?
Something to that level, or something that like we trigger a trap per se.
Yes.
In that though, you have to watch the magic that the mind can do though, because like one thing that the mind is great at doing is it's seeing organization and chaos. So, you know what I mean? We love, like, our mind can build, like, I used to do this with like wood. And says I did it all the time as a kid.
Everything
look
had
like-
to have reason.
Yeah, like I look at wood or a tile or some kind of pattern in something, and oh, there'd be a face. Oh, that's a little gnome guy.
Mhm.
Oh, that's this thing.
I did that in
You know what
Mahs
I mean?
garage today when I was there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, that's where we have to be careful, because that's what we could do with Mars. That's like our mind needs to understand. So it's like, what's the most relatable thing to this? And it does an illusion on itself to say, oh, I don't understand this, but I need to. So here we go. And
This
it's
is
like,
what it is.
this is
Oh,
what
there
it
we go.
is.
That makes
Yeah.
sense now.
Mhm.
Okay. You know, and so it's like, it's a magic trick we're doing to ourselves for our own benefit.
In a sense, but we're also
Yeah,
kind of
right.
hindering ourselves
Benefit.
too at the same
Yeah.
time.
It's not, is it a benefit? You know,
Yes.
what's important, what matters, why are we doing it?
Everything is good in moderation.
Yes. And that's where you have to check that against. It's like, yeah, those things look like this, but let's go study. Are they exactly symmetrical? Oh, well, if it was this, then you'd see exactly this over here. And it's like, that's how, you know, exactly like we found Pluto. We're like, well, if it's this, then we should see something similar, because I was learning this about Pascal's triangle today too. And like, that's Pascal's triangle is like with the ones and how it all comes down. And what they were saying is like, other planets would experience, like they would come to the same conclusion of Pascal's triangle. They probably wouldn't call it Pascal's triangle, but if they know math and understood math, they would find the same pattern, because math works the same way for them. You know what I mean? And like,
just
that
math
unity,
math was born out of nature and
yes,
necessity.
exactly. Numbers are our understanding of math that goes around us all the time.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Like flowers follow math, symmetrical patterns.
Mhm.
Patterns are everywhere. It's ridiculous how
Oh God,
how
yeah.
programmed the world around us is sometimes.
Even the symbols we got came from the patterns, that the things that we saw in nature that influenced them.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like an S for a snake and different things like that. It's like, we're like, oh, nature did this. And you know what I mean? It's like, even the technological advances that we make are better when we incorporate nature. Like when they make
Yes.
subway trains based off birds' bodies and different things like that to make them more aerodynamic. It's better than anything they can do in a computer trying to figure it all out with the math. You know what I mean? Like nature did it. Nature's had billions of years to figure that shit out. You're trying to do it in a couple
Why
hours.
reinvent the wheel?
Exactly. You know, like nature's magical. Just tune into that, like appreciate that magic. Stop like looking past it. You know what I mean? Stop like just glossing over the magic that's around you every single day. You know?
Don't always dismiss everything, right?
No. Look at the
There's
world
magic
of a
in
kid.
everything.
Right.
There's a lot of times that I'll just like, even just standing outside smoking a cigarette, like taking my decompressing time, like just looking at the beauty and appreciating like what something is.
There's a lot of time, you know, we get caught up in ourselves and we don't.
We do.
Especially as adults, we rarely give ourselves even a second chance to take a breath and
The
accept
responsibilities pile on in
that. They
adulthood.
do. And you forget to take the time to just kind of breathe it in and see nature again.
And show magic to that next generation. Like that's your
Yes.
job. That's what someone did that for you as a kid. Someone showed you magic. Like you got to do
Don't
that for
stifle
people.
it.
Right.
That's
Give
the
them
biggest
a
thing.
magical
Exactly.
experience. Yeah. Don't stifle it. Yeah.
Keep it moving.
Keep your real shit out of here. I don't want your
Keep it
realism.
Well, and yeah, exactly. Don't stifle, but on the time, go the extra effort. If you can make someone's day magical, or if you can do something that they didn't expect, like, and it doesn't, do it. Like, if you can do that for somebody else, like, you know, be nature. You are a human. You are just as part of nature as anything else you see. Be just as magical. You know, you have that power with the thoughts and ideas, and, you know, you can express that to kids. You can express that to adults. You know, you can show an adult who hasn't seen magic in years, make them believe in magic.
You can.
You know?
The fire never goes out. It's just gets pretty small sometimes.
You got to remember your
rekindled.
power. You got to
Yeah.
know the power you have, like, and what you're capable of. And we forget that. And we get beaten down by society to be so normal, to be this like cutout that we're expected to be. And it's like, that kills the magic. The magic
Yes.
becomes from your uniqueness. The magic becomes from what makes you weird. That's your magic.
You get
That's your,
fine-tuned into the human you're supposed to be.
yeah, that's the unexpected. If we're taking the unexpected out of society and the conversations we have, you know what I mean? We're losing that magic.
You stifle growth. You know, it's only a matter of time before, like what you were saying, Smokey, the imagination dies. We've
It
been
does.
we'll be programmed where imagination is weird and anybody who does it needs to be crucified and
It's going to be
We've
like
done that already.
the previous organizations that like whenever someone would be talking something that like they didn't agree with or they didn't believe in, and it's heresy per se.
yes.
Yeah. Look at when they said like the world was round. He's
Oh,
like,
yeah.
no, it's flat. It's always been flat. That's just how things are. It's
Throw
flat.
his ass in jail.
Throw
He's
his ass- that's
obviously
just
crazy.
crazy blah 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 blah, and it's like,
Well, we can't have him infecting other people with this craziness.
Why can't you even think about it? Why is that? Why is it so just terrible
How,
to think a
how
different
are you
way?
so certain that it's
Yeah.
flat?
Right.
I think.
Have you ever fallen off the edge?
Wasn't it in Pirates of the Caribbean or something? I think it might have been a cartoon. Now that I think about it, but they literally went to the edge of the earth,
Yeah.
and it was the water. The water was just falling like a waterfall.
Yeah.
Just pay up. Told you it's flat.
I like when Futurama goes to the edge of the universe too.
Oh, that.
And they
too,
just see
yeah.
themselves on the other side, just like, hey guys.
Oh man, the episode of Major Lazer where they just go to the end of time.
Dang.
Yeah, that was deep.
They do that in Futurama too, but they find that it's circulative.
Yeah, that it's all.
So they just, we missed it. Throw it in forward.
Oh man,
You can't go backwards in time.
I'm part of
So you got to run through it again.
I'm part of a group on Facebook that's like a Futurama fan club group or a fan club page or whatever. But basically, like for the majority of the time, all the posts are just infinite loops. And it's all just like different parts of the shows on an infinite loop. So like Hedonism Bot just rubbing himself, it's just all just going forever. Bender multiplying and just endlessly going. Like I've seen so many different and like yeah, Bender shooting the professor, just endlessly shooting. Another crazy episode too, the idea of free will in a artificial being, because you think about it, free will is what defines human and artificialness.
And that's where that line becomes thin though too, is like how much control we think we have over our actions and how much control we actually have over our actions. You know what I mean? How much stuff is actually influenced and people just don't do every day because they're told not to, compared to what you decide not to do. You know what I mean? Like how much in control are we?
How much have we been programmed?
Right.
What are we allowed to be in control of? What are we allowed to change? What are we allowed to unlearn?
Do we have magic powers that have just
Yeah.
been suppressed and that we're not told about? Because if we all started using them, there'd be fucking chaos because everybody is out doing whatever the fuck they want with their magical powers. Can you imagine
Or
that?
maybe the world would be
everybody in the
place.
planet? It could be. It really could, because it's
it
like
could absolutely.
Look at
everybody's
My
just
Hero
as powerful.
Everybody's
Everybody's
place of
just as
anarchy.
strong.
That's
The
just
eye
like
doesn't
My
matter by
Hero, man.
size.
There definitely would not be billions of people on the planet if everyone had a different power.
Oh yeah, no, you'd have competitions. Who's the best with that power for sure?
Absolutely.
Survival of the fittest.
But we could probably space
It
travel.
would
easier.
literally
Someone
be.
had
It
powers
would
to that, we could
literally
probably
be.
take over planets more.
It's similar to some anime that I watch, but like where like everyone either like you're born with magical ability or you're not.
Yeah. But again, like Crick said, what if we were and it's just being suppressed by what we've been taught?
That too. I mean,
learned growing up.
So then
when
all of a sudden it's
things-
turned off
when
and
when
everybody
we're
things
first
we-
born, when we're first
things
born,
we do.
our parents don't get to see us for X amount of time.
they're cutting our
What's
magic
going
cord.
on in
Cutting our
that
magic
X amount of
cord or-
time?
Well,
You know,
could you
maybe we
imagine?
develop it at a certain
They're
time and we've
injecting
been-
us with the magic suppressant. They're cutting.
We've been
they're
taught
cutting-
to consciously
They're
suppress
cutting.
it
They're
by our
cutting.
actions.
They're cutting away our Uzuru tails.
Well, and think about that too. Not just if everybody was born with magic and like learned what to do with it over time. Imagine if everybody all of a sudden was just told, "Hey, you have magic powers, but you've been told not to use them." And all of a sudden,
Oh my
no
God.
responsibility, no understanding what you could do. Everybody
Whoa.
was just like, "Oh, wait, we can do that kind of shit." And then now everybody's just playing with that shit at the same time.
Oh.
That-
You're gonna have some
because then you'd have the factions. Wait a minute, you've been telling me I've had this the whole time, and it was your choice that I couldn't use it.
yeah. There's gonna be a level. There's
People
gonna
just
be
grateful that they know
resentment.
now. They're
and
just
there's
gonna-
happy that
Yes.
I have powers.
Yeah, it's
That's
not.
how
It's
I'd
not
be.
just gonna be like, oh,
Yes.
like
Right?
everything in the future has been fixed. It's gonna be like, why did we let the past become what it was?
Why would we forget
Yeah.
the past? And that happens all the time. That's where it's like it's easy to fall into that because there is shit that's covered up. There is shit about our past that we're not told about. There is shit
Oh,
that
absolutely.
we're divided apart by.
The
So it's
victors
like,
tell the stories.
how far does that go? You know what I mean? That's where all conspiracy theorists can blow up so can blow up so big is because it's like there is all
You
that.
don't
It's built
know.
on facts. It's built on the honest, it's built on actions that have actually happened. That puts it more of a realm of reality.
Yes. That's huge. That's
You know?
that's what gives it a backbone. That's
Right.
what. How long is a conspiracy before it can become factual?
Right, like flat Earth.
What?
Flat Earth was a big conspiracy, but science and math was easy to beat it down because it's like
Yes.
just by the physics of it, from the understanding that we know about physics, that would not work. You know what I mean? And it's like, okay, yeah, we can't see it from space, and I can't go personally see it, but I'm comfortable enough with math and knowing how reliable math is to understand that, yeah, that probably
Right.
wouldn't work out physically.
They take physics and apply it. Forgot where I was going with that.
I forgot where I was going before you said that. That probably nailed it.
Well, that's where you got to be careful, though, because like we said, is when you apply it and define it too much, it's moderation.
It is.
So
And you
wanna
can
apply
only
and
define what
it.
you know, especially like you said with the things on Mars. We're defining that from a 2D picture. Have you ever looked at mountains from the top view? Can you tell they're mountains?
Oh, no, I actually haven't from a straight on top view. That's interesting.
I mean,
You can
only
kind of tell,
the
but-
best of what Google Earth can show me.
You couldn't give a
Right.
grasp for how tall they are. You might know they're mountains, but you don't know how
True.
big of mountains they are.
Exactly.
Not from
And
not
even
from
seeing
not
the
from straight on,
mountains.
but even like you have to think about the different perspective. Like unless there is something that shows legitimate perspective, it's just going to be something that's straight on.
Exactly. And that's all we've got from Mars, from those. I mean, we've got the Mars rover on there now, but like the satellite views and stuff, that's all they are 2D pictures. And all we can do is guesstimate and apply math to what we think it might be to make it make sense.
Related to stuff we already know.
Basically,
Yes.
It's
how we
Pull up the
learn
old
anything
book.
related.
Yeah. Yep.
At least that's how I learn. And I know I do it a lot on this podcast. I'll overtalk when you guys are saying something, but it's not to try to steal the thunder. It's to try to, okay, I think you're thinking this, so I'm trying to follow you. Just confirm if I'm thinking the same thing you're thinking.
From a different avenue.
Yes. I'm trying to put it in a way that makes sense to me, but I think it's the same thing that you're saying.
Well, and that's when you don't do that, that's what cuts stuff off, because like if we're not accepting the view of looking at things from different perspectives, like you're saying, and just like, well, you shouldn't speak because I was trying to tell you something. It's like, well, then I can't grow my opinion of the thing I was talking about. Like, that's not a conversation if I'm just sitting there telling it to you to inform you. But you can ask me questions about the thing I'm telling you that'll make me say things or make me question in a way that I've never even perceived it.
Right.
Because your mind has different questions than my mind had when I looked at it. And so it's like, by letting you talk and letting you converse, and even if you try to like reiterate and it's not the same point, you might bring up something in that completely changes where I was going with it, and that's if you're receptive to that.
That's the real magic of humans, conversations.
Right. Building on each other.
Real conversations.
There is that level of the etiquette, though, in terms of knowing how to not necessarily and it's something that I struggle with myself, and something that a lot of people struggle with, but just in terms of like listening through the story and remembering what you wanted to say, and not necessarily having to say it right at that exact point, but being able to go back to it once you have your break. But then you get some people that they just do not catch on to visual cues, and they will literally, like, I've done this where I will literally, I'll be talking to someone and I'll just be waiting, and I'll be waiting, and I'll be waiting, and I'll be waiting, and I'll be waiting. And by the time I've already forgotten what we're going to talk about, we're already talking about something completely different. So it is.
And you've already thought of 10 other
is.
thoughts in the middle of it, right?
And like only in a few instances, like if it depends on like my comfort with the person, but like if you're just talking and talking and talking and talking and talking, I'm going to break it up.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Some people will do that, because even like I've had people do this with mess with me, and it's if you're talking and you pause and the other person just stares at you, a lot of times people will start talking again, because people feel awkward with that silence. And that's not saying that's what's happened with them, because I know the people you're talking about where there's not even a breath. There's no point of interjection where you can put in one of your other thoughts.
How did you fit that much oxygen in your lungs?
Right. It's like they're doing like that breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth at the same time, because it's like we're 3 other topics past, and it's like, yeah. And one thing that has helped me out in those instances where you can come back to it, and I only learned this from doing the podcast, which I haven't done at all this episode, but is write down that thought. Because for me, like what happens in that is it goes, oh, it's on my mind, I got to say this. I can't even pay attention fully to what I'm being told because part of my mind is trying to hold on to this idea.
I get that.
But the moment that I write it on paper, my mind goes, okay, it's logged. And then I can engage back in. And when I when I get a pause again, or I see the conversation dying back out, I can look down at that topic. And I'm trying to find a way to incorporate that into my everyday life without being weird.
It's
Spark
tough
notes, right?
Because or you would just be carrying around it. That's what I'm doing. That's what a lot of people carry, just like a personal journal.
That's what I do.
A lot of people
did for a long time.
I mean, to each their own. They have their reasons. But if you had if you just had like a personal journal with you at all times, and then like you're in the middle of a conversation with someone, you're talking, so then you write something. But then here's the thing, and I've seen this happen as well. You'll be in the middle of a conversation with someone, and then they'll be talking, and then you'll go to write down your thought, and then they will stop and let you write down your thought.
Yeah.
Because they look
the awkward
at it
pause you try to avoid happens anyway.
You just created by writing something down.
But that's your audience. That might be some person who is better tuned in with their social like cues and can know, hey, this person's trying to express something, so I'm going to give that, that pause. Or something who's not, who will see you writing stuff down and be like, okay, they're not even paying
That's
attention.
super rude that they're writing this down.
Right.
But I'm going to
like
keep
especially
talking anyway.
especially in this setting, like writing things down that you want to say so that you can remember, like that is actually like something good to be able to do. But put yourself on like a you and someone else scenario. Like think about that. Like if you were talking to someone and they just all of a sudden started writing something down, like if you would just continue talking with what you're talking about, or if you would ask them what they're writing down.
I'd probably pause for them, like thinking about it. I'd be like, because I feel like they would want to say something. I don't know, but that's me also knowing now that's what we do. So that's being self-aware. So.
See, like, and I try to put myself in that same situation, and I try to say like, just like take away your cognitive skills and just like be like a basic human being. And like me personally, it's like someone that is if it's me and someone else and we're just having a general conversation, and that person I'm telling them something, but I've lost their eye contact and they are now like writing something down, I'm probably not gonna just continue talking, even at like my like basic human being, because I feel like once you have lost the eye contact, but then there's a difference between losing the eye contact and losing the attention, because some people that they could be doing something else, but they're still listening. Like they're listening to what you're saying. They're just not looking you in the face because they're busy doing other things. Maybe they're to each their own. I feel like that person's not giving you 100% of the focus that the person wants you to give them. But as long as you are not rude, you should be okay. Because generally speaking, that's a little bit selfish to just demand someone's 100% undivided attention, unless you're like a corporation that's like training an employee or something.
But we're not raised that way. We're taught to think the other way. It's selfish to think that you shouldn't willingly give up all of your attention to someone who wants to say something to you.
Yeah.
That's the way that we were brought up. But then you become an adult and you start to learn that you can't just give your attention into something without repercussions of other things that you're not giving your attention to.
Yeah, if you give your attention to this, you've got to take it. Everything's give and take, right?
Right.
If you're going to give it from here, you got to take from here.
And it's a skill. So I feel like some people have and some don't, because you learn that when you our manager, like in like a work setting, because it's like some people know how to work and talk at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's some people, as soon as their mouth stops moving, their hands stop and they can't
They
keep
need to
working.
talk to work.
Well, and the reverse, where they can't work while they're talking. Like if they can't keep, like you're like, okay, then I literally can't have a conversation with you because I need you to do the project at hand. And it's like, I need you, if we're gonna talk, you need to keep moving in the same sense, you know, in the same setup.
I've definitely run into that, and especially at like different places that I've been, where it's like they want you to be able to talk to them so that you don't just have like a break in silence. You don't just have like this like break in like audio of like you talking to this person. So like they don't want there to be like dead air or like silence. So they want you to continue to talk to the person, but in reality, I'm just taking like 5 seconds to like look up your information, and then at the end of this 3, 4, 5 seconds at the most, if it's something longer, then like I'm going to let you know like what's going on. But for the most part, most humans, like if it's like 3, 4, 5 seconds of dead air with no response, you're going to get, hello, are you still there?
Mm-hmm.
Like they're going to think they're being ignored.
Well, and I think I can get that more with like data entry and having to read stuff because you have to focus a little bit more. And I guess it comes on the person, but like stacking boxes or putting away just like inventory or things like that, and people not being able to like talk when they don't have to like input data, they just have to move stuff. You know what I mean? But like I feel the same where I'm like when I'm trying to ring somebody up or when I'm doing like these tedious parts of the sale that are really important, if I screw them up, I'm not going to talk to you for those 2 or 3 seconds.
These are your detailed. This is your focus has to be here.
Right. I have to hone in for like a few seconds. We're going to have to break this conversation, but I'm doing it so you get the right change back and so you're happy with the order too. Like,
Yes.
there's a reason we have to be particular. And it's the same thing in construction. Like, we would shoot the shit all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But when it came down to something that was very, you know, like nitty gritty and like you could either really hurt yourself or really screw something up.
You're not talking because you don't want to break your focus.
For a second. Right.
Exactly.
There's
You gotta go to the zone.
Yeah.
The zone is required, and then you can come back a little bit.
Yeah. The zone in itself is magic. Like that zone state, that flow state, that in tune with the universe, like everything works around you. It's magical.
If you could find a way to teleport yourself to your mind to those zones when you need them in those zones. Or if you could know which zone
turn
to
on
go
flow
to.
state, like Limitless, just flip on flow state. Boom. All right, let's go.
Just like
flip
that movie.
Just
like that movie Click.
Yeah.
Just fast forward.
Yeah.
Just autopilot, and then like those kids still turned out okay. So,
right.
I guess you look at like if you're just on autopilot and you're not providing input, then you're relying on like other resources to like provide the lessons that you're not providing.
That almost goes back to what we talked about earlier. It's like, you know, some of those days get done and it's like, what did I do? Were those the autopilot days?
Mm-hmm.
And how many autopilot days did he have in that movie? You know,
oh man,
that's where you have to be careful.
Tons.
You can like, it's good to have habits and routines, but it's also dangerous because if your day-to-day is too much of a routine, weeks pass by so fast.
Oh God,
you have no clue what anything is, but it's like routines are also good because it gives you something to structure and look forward to.
Some people need it, and then some people don't want it.
I think everybody needs it to an extent.
That's what I was going to say. You may not want it because that's someone who I was. I don't want a routine. I don't want to know how my day's going to go. I don't know.
That's going to mess with my creativity.
I think there's some people that just want to be free thinkers that just decide what they're doing with their time at all times. And I mean, to each their own. If you're at that ability that you can do with it, all the power to you. And then you've got other people that they want at least a level of a routine in terms of consistency, but not necessarily the same thing in terms of a routine.
Right. And I think that's where you need that balance. You know, you've got your routine to make sure you're moving, you're doing stuff. It's to stimulate yourself. So that way, when you have those creative bursts and those flow states, it makes those seem magical and more worthwhile because it's not something in your routine, but it's something just as amazing as an empty sink is. because that feeling feels good. No matter how tedious and how much everybody hates doing dishes, when you see a sink full of dishes and you finish them and you see the sink, it's like, oh, yes.
Especially becomes so habit where like you've almost done the chore without even thinking about it. Before you give your time to whine about it or care about it, the chore is already done, and you're like, you don't even listen. Sometimes for me, I don't remember doing it. It's so much of a habit. It's so ingrained that I'm just like,
that's where driving
is just already out of the way. Yeah, driving's a good example.
Driving's huge.
How did I just go 10 miles? Like, what happened? You know, like you're in such a flow state, you lose track of time.
Absolutely, and especially when I'm in that flow state, then I'm just rushing to work.
right. Weaving in and out of traffic. You got your music on. You know what I mean? Like you're in that drive mode. You're in that setup that you've made for yourself.
A lot of people like listen to their own music, but I just kind of listen to the radio. Like I don't monkey with it. Like one, I like listening to the radio shows in the morning, and that's most like I'm either listening to the radio in the morning or I'm listening to the radio on my drive home. And then I'm listening to the radio if I go and do like other errands and stuff. But that's sometimes where I'll break it, where if it's like, if I'm not driving to or from work, then I will listen to my own, listen to my own music.
See, I'm like the complete inverse of you. I never listen to radio. Like I don't even really listen to playlists that are made by other people unless it's like a weird genre that I'm trying to experience. Like I'm very picky about what I listen to, but it's also, I've realized more is because I'm utilizing the notes and the tones that I'm listening to for what I'm doing. I'm trying to manipulate myself. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. I'm trying to influence I feel like I have an understanding of how they influence me. So I'm better trying to utilize those when I can to set the mood or set the energy or set the tone, you know what I mean? For the
redirect your personal energies.
Right. Like when I'm going into work
for your expectations,
I'm getting something happy, something energy, something popping off. You know, I'm in management too. I'm trying to set the tone for my employees when
you're going to a very depressive state or place. So you have to offset it.
I have to come in good energy. And like, I've even had that from my management where they've said like, I can tell you're coming in a good mood and putting on a positive energy, even though you're not in that place. Even though that you're not happy, you're still coming across and being positive. And it's because I've put myself there. You know what I mean? It's like, I know how to trick myself into those different environments.
Podcasts can kind of sometimes help with that too, depending on the topic. You know, Then it goes back to the conversation thing. Podcasts, ebooks, you know, if you want to learn about something that you don't want to actually sit and read.
I was thinking about that today. Honestly, it's because like, I don't read much at all. Like, unless I'm like trying to deep dive into something that I can't find a video about, but it's like, I'm a very sporadic person. I like to do multiple things at a time. There's never really anything that can fully hone my attention.
Yes.
You know what I mean? I'm always doing at least 2 things at a time. So it's like, if I'm watching a video or I can listen to a podcast or I can do something else while still receiving information, like I feel better. I feel like I'm like fully engaged.
You're still growing yourself kind of.
Yeah.
Right. You're bettering yourself as a human being.
If I'm just sitting there listening and stuff, my hands are like, okay, what do I do? What am I doing? What am I doing? It's like,
right.
Draw, do something. Give me something to do.
And it's like, even if you do just try to listen to it, it's like, oh, this is so inspiring. What do I got to do? I got to do something now.
Why am I listening to it if I'm not listening into it to inspire
to be inspired? Yeah.
Oh man,
that was the point of it, right?
Yeah.
I have a friend that's the same way. And like I was actually just like talking to them the other day, like asking them like if they've like adopted more reading, and they basically just like were like, no, I have not, and I don't plan to.
It's how your mind works, you know what I mean? I've tried reading, and I have
each their own.
I keep buying books and I keep getting into them and reading a little bit into them, but I'm not consuming the knowledge. No matter how hard I try, I'm not reading those books. But I can watch a documentary and I can actually absorb that knowledge. Down. So it's like, do I sit there and just get mad at myself because my mind doesn't work in the way that I want it to? Or do I say, okay, I still want to learn. Books aren't doing it for me. Let's find another route. You know what I mean?
Try to read books in a different voice, like narrator voice.
No.
Sometimes that helps.
Okay.
It makes it more fun.
Sometimes. I guess it just depends on what you're reading.
You can do it with anything.
I mean, you can. You definitely can. I mean, to read myself managerial accounting in a Norm Macdonald voice would probably make it a little bit more
Some dirty work.
Comical for me.
Dirty work accounting facts.
That's a good
my
point, though.
God.
It is kind of what you read, because like even when I did read a lot more when I was younger, it was always fantasy stuff. I wanted something that was a different world or something mystical or something strange. Like that's what engaged me, not just some story
Don't
about.
tell me these things that somebody else already figured out. Show me the things that
Right.
people think might be real that nobody knows for sure.
Right, and in normal physics and normal setups, it's like, no, I want to travel to a different world. I want to teleport. I want to teleport through this book. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And like that's
Show
the
me
only
this
time
book of things that I can't do, that you would normally tell me I can't do. I can do because it's in this book.
I guess that means I use them more as an escape. You know what I mean? And like I've seen them more like an escapism. It's a different universe. Just like I'd go to play Skyrim or something else, like to dip out of this universe for a little bit.
Basically.
It's your own alternate dimension.
Yeah.
I suppose a lot of people use the internet like that, don't they? People there's some people are completely different on the internet.
They use it
sometimes.
for however they need it,
Exactly.
They use the internet so many different, but the internet almost is like our version or our interpretation of like magic
travel. Yeah.
Right. Teleportation. Like you can see what it's like on the other side of the world within seconds. You can know what the temperature is like. There's so much stuff that you have all this power at the instant access of your hands. You know what I mean? Just boom. Like you touch a button, boom. Like that happens. Like you send a message, you piss a bunch of people off. Tell me
magic isn't real.
Right. Like instantaneous effects of the surroundings of your entire world. Like
I have a cousin who's really good at that. They'll post something and piss off everybody, and then they don't say anything else, but this thing will get to like 250, 700 some stupid comments, of people just bickering back and forth for what he said.
It amazes me when I see that, and I'm just like, these people have nothing else to do.
You've just been trolled. You don't even realize it.
And they find, that's the joy that they find in it too, is just trolling people. And it's like the same thing though. It's like, if you could spend that energy trying to inform those people, it's, instead of just like wallowing in there.
It does start conversations a lot of times though. It starts a lot of arguments, but there are sometimes some good discussions in there.
Yeah.
Some of them you have to wade through, but you will find them.
Yeah. I mean, you've got your typical Facebook arguments. You're wrong, I'm right. No, you're wrong, I'm right.
Wait, where's the facts? Oh, never mind. It's Facebook comments.
You're wrong. You're wrong, I'm right. There's your facts of the day.
Yeah, exactly. That's
knowledge, information, trial and error.
Knowledge, you're wrong. No, information, you're wrong. Knowledge, I'm right. End of discussion. I think that's kind of where the magic is kind of like
how strong of a presence it is starting to.
And I think a lot of it is the social media stuff. You see a lot of that darkness where it is red versus blue and that's it. There's no in between.
Same time, I feel like these things exist, but for a different audience. I feel like a lot of things that like our parents didn't mind us learning about at a young age, parents these days have more of an issue with their child learning about than our parents did.
Agree.
There's
I
more
feel that way a lot of times. Like, should I be showing my kids this? What was I doing at their age? And
they're walking on many more eggshells nowadays. There's many more things that we understand about society and infecting other people. But that's also infecting yourself and
that's what I'm trying to get at.
Social health and mental health.
You have that thin line of like babying your child and just
showing the world a terrible place and out there to get them.
But you have that difference, but you have the difference between like babying your child and like teaching your child how to do it for themselves.
Yeah.
Right. That the world's a hard place and you better learn to start beating people up now. Otherwise it's going to beat you up.
Yes. Or just at least in terms of like how to handle things yourself, that you don't have to rely on your parents, because one day your parents are not going to be there and you're going to have to figure this shit all yourself.
And that's where I think it's the middle ground. It's like, hey, figure this stuff out. These are what I did in some of those situations and look how that turned out. But
yeah, it's like all they can do is give you their knowledge off their experience.
And again,
and you won't know until you try.
And
It's
that's
the
where
same
you gotta
stupid thing. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make a drink, right?
No, you can try. It's just going to kick you in the face.
Yep.
That's where it's so important though that you're the one who teaches them magic. You're the ones who teaches your kids to believe in magic and to like not have to define everything, not to have to push everything under a thumb and say this is how it is. It's like magic is around you. Don't let the world stifle that for that, because we all start thinking that way. We all start thinking that the world is this magical place that's full of wonder, and a stick is a sword, and you know what I mean, you can cast spells out of your hand, or you're standing in the shower and the water's trickling down your arm and you can shoot water. Like, it doesn't matter. Hone and
It
live
just
into
comes
that,
down
like,
it comes down to embracing and wanting to capitalize on the young
The
child's
moment.
on the moment, as well as the imagination of the moment.
Yeah, exactly. And by capitalize, again, it goes back to what we've brought up in every podcast. It doesn't just always mean money. Happiness
No.
is something you can capitalize on.
personal growth. Yes.
Personal growth. You learn something. You build
Someone
that bond.
you teach your child to have an extremely active imagination, and then they become a movie writer because
Or
they
a
have
writer, an
because they have
author,
an
Or an
imagination.
engineer or a designer, because they see the world a different way and says, well, I don't like the physics of that. Let me show you how it's going to work. You know, do something magical.
Try
Go
it
out
because
and-
you want to try it, not try it because you think it might fail.
Right.
Don't let fear dictate what you do. We've been in a society for a very long time where fear has been taught to us that that's got to be the deciding factor, and fear leads to logic, and logic is right because it gets rid of fear, and it's not always right.
I feel like fear is something that will always be present, but it doesn't necessarily have to be something that has as much weight.
Yes.
Like I can fear for my life that I'm gonna walk out that door and someone's just gonna be like, hiya, and they just stab me 47 different times in my chest. I can fear
So
for
then
my
you can
life,
never leave the house,
and then
right?
I'd never leave the house because God forbid that person's gonna stab me in the chest 47 times.
He's just waiting.
Or I'm gonna face my fears and I'm gonna walk out that door, and luckily, knock on wood, there has not been a person there to stab me 47 different times.
Well, and it's like we said before,
46,
like,
we'll get there.
magic is the conquering of fear. You know what I mean? Magic is, we used it to conquer the elements and all these things that we didn't understand. So we conceptualized magic and how we would control those, you know, because there were things that were more powerful as that we couldn't even grasp. So it's like we've always used magic as our counter to fear. It's like, I'm not going to be afraid of you because I'm going to imagine I'm going to create this existence where I'm not.
It almost inflates the fear sometimes too, though. You know,
And you
It
also
can.
have to think about think about magic in that sense, and think about like you had to like study magic. Like you can't just like do it. Like you have to like know how it works. You have to like know how to apply it, and you have to like know like how it affects others per se.
so you're making magic like everything else in the world.
And you can apply those
It's a skill.
you can apply those principles to basically anything. Like in terms of like gaining knowledge, like you're just going to do something to gain that knowledge. So
There's no fast
like
pass.
whatever you're learning, whatever skill that you're learning, it's going to come down to the commitment that you put into investing into your time and your well-being into learning that skill. Thank you for stopping by Mahs Garage. I'm Smokey.
I'm Crick.
And I'm Kev.
All right, Crick, let's get this started.
Yeah, I've been wanting to try out this new deck.
Nice. So I will take the
Nope,
first
guys.
move.
Podcast Wednesday.
How come you get to go first? I want to go first.
I mean, actually, yeah, let's roll a d20 real quick.
All right, hold on, I'll get one out real quick.
Nice. I like that.
Nice.
I like that.
All right. I need to switch to mobile so I can go pee.
Only
All right, I'm gonna go pee and then I'll be in Discord.
Cool. Okay, so we're well over 2 hours.
Yes.
Yeah, I know.
yes. I gotta pee so bad.
I feel like we had a closing in there at one point.
I'm correct. What?
Yeah, I know. I saw the look on my face.
Oh, he said I'm Finn. I was just like, what? Let's keep going.
Wow.
I forgot to flip it to gallery. I forgot to flip it to gallery.
How was that? How was that with the walkway?
I liked that.
As I went
liked
up
that
the
a
stairs, did it get quieter?
Yes, it did.
Yes.
It was like you're
Yes.
frustrated just walking off scene. Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, I said your name. Damn it. We can't use that now. Damn it. I
So
tried.
now,
What was my question?
what did we just talk about?
So you guys are looking at each other, and where am I looking?
No, we're looking.
No. In
On the screen, you guys are
all
looking at
three
each
of
other,
us
In
right?
his
are
screen, we're
looking
not.
at the- All right, now let's get started.
Let's do this.
Shoot.
The podcast Magic on Sunday. Why don't they get that? Just don't get it.
We did.
We were on our way, and then all of a sudden we started talking about different
Pick back
stuff.
up. Pick back up.
All right, how can we like slow it down to a close and let's close this bitch?